Hey guys, how's it going tonight? Hope everybody's doing well and such. Let's see. I'm just gonna get started here. And all right, let's see. Already we got a guest coming to say hi. There we go. We got Rudolph coming to say hi to everybody. For those of you on TikTok, she's right here. For everybody else, you can kind of see her. She loves to come and stick her face into all my streaming. But hey, gotta love a dog, right? Anyway, all right. So project for tonight, gonna be making a couple journal covers. We're trying to make a couple. Might just get one done tonight, or almost get one done tonight, and such. So yeah, we will start with that. I'm streaming across multiple platforms again tonight. So TikTok, I got you on my phone here. So if your chats pass by and you have questions, and I miss it, please repost it, or shoot me a message afterwards. If you like what you see, please follow, and such. You'll get to see some more handmade leather goods being made. If you enjoy what you see and you would maybe like to have something made by me, or you would like something custom, please reach out to me and let me know. Dragonscaleleather.ca is my website. So feel free to come and have a browse and take a look at that. I'm just going to get this knife a little bit sharper here, as I'll be cutting through some leather here momentarily, and such. So, alright. So this is the leather that I'm going to be using tonight. This is called a Denver hide. It's gorgeous. It's an oil based, mixed tanned hide, so it's chrome tanned as well as vegetable tanned, and it just makes like a gorgeous, makes gorgeous products and such. So we're going to be using some of this for this particular project. We're going to use this corner. This side here is what I'm going to cut out of. I'm just kind of going to have to just mess around with this a little bit. Actually, you know what? Maybe we'll go with the other side. Yeah, I think this side will be a little bit better overall. And so we'll place this a little bit to try and get the best use of this material. This is the last chunk of this that I have, and apparently my supplier doesn't have any more. They're sold out and don't know when they're going to get any more, and so that makes me a little sad because I really quite like this leather. It is pretty fantastic to use, but it is what it is. And so hopefully in the near future they'll regain or get some more, but we will have to see about that. Alright, so I'll just mark our cut lines. Make sure we get that all lined up again. got a little bit off there. All right. Hey Sarah, how you doing? Thanks for joining me. And everybody else, if you've come up on TikTok and you're watching me and I didn't see you pop up, please feel free to say hi. I don't have you on the big screen because I'm streaming across multiple platforms here. So yeah, if I miss anything, I greatly apologize. And hopefully feel free to say something. So I will be, like I say, the goal is to make 2 of these between today and tomorrow. One is going to be in this leather, like I said. The other I'm going to be making out of some vegetable tanned leather, and they want it blue. So yeah, that should be fun to make. Alright, so just get a couple initial cuts in here, get these pieces out of here. Oh, and thanks for all the likes, guys. Greatly appreciate it. And as I have done for like the last couple streams, any gifts that I get, everything's going to good old Rudolph. So get her, bones and toys and stuff that she likes and such. So it's nice to. So just so she can live a life of a bit of a spoiled dog. Plus then she also tends to use less, or tries to eat less of my my leather scraps, which every once in a while I find her having acquired and is chewing on a chunk of leather. So, which isn't so bad if it's like vegetable tan leather, but I do not want her chowing down on any chrome tan leather because of the chromium that they use. Alright, let's just use the bigger square here. You got it nice and easy. Just clean this piece up and get it out of the way here. And that should make this piece a little bit easier to deal with. big. Alright. So normally I'd like to have some music going too, but because I'm streaming across the multiple platforms, they don't, things like YouTube and such, they're not big fans of letting me keep the volume or the sound on my videos afterwards, because of copyright, obviously. So hence no music in the background tonight. I do need to look into like some licensing one or some licensing program to that'll let me they'll give me rights to have music in the background, but until then I just have to hold off. I'll have to listen to my voice. So hopefully that's not too bad. And awesome, guys, thank you for the 1,000 likes already. That's phenomenal. Helps me out lots. Kind of gets me out to other people. Shows off the work. So yeah, greatly appreciated. Those pieces. You know what? I need to find the template for my other chunk, because actually we do need to cut a few more pieces out of the bigger chunk as well. I'm forgetting about my the flap covers. We'll need to make here, so. To just step off camera for a moment and get and find that chunk so I can cut those other pieces. Plus I got to cut a card pocket here out of this chunk here, so let's do that. And sorry guys, I don't have a camera pointing at my cutting or at my press yet, but soon I should. But anyway, to see what I'm using, so this is my die cutter, and I use this to make the card pocket here. And it cuts so nicely, and it cuts the perfect shape, so it makes it really nice to use. And I apologize for being off camera. Just give me another few moments here. Just want to make sure everything is lined up so we don't have to cut more pieces than I want. Better to just get it done right the first time. And so there you can see the card pocket. And let me just quickly find that other piece of my pattern here. That's not it. Thought I had it. That's not it. That's not it. I made the mistake of cleaning up my my work area tonight, and so of course because I did that, I can't find things. Because, you know, that's just the way it always works. Okay. So we got shell, a piece. So I need 2 of these. So I guess I'm gonna have to grab my roll of leather here again. We should just be able to use this little section here to get these 2.
Dad, what is this?
I don't know, bring it here.
Looks like a candy packet to me.
Oh.
It's like chocolate.
Maybe. She always seems to find everything.
Yeah, that is true.
So yeah.
What?
So yeah, thanks for all the likes, guys. Greatly appreciate it. Alright, so we'll get these 2 inside cover pieces or flaps done. They're all marked out. Alright, there we go. That's that piece. Let's put this back up here. There we go. Oh, and there's there's the shop foreman once again, coming to say hi. Here, let's change our scene over here. There we go. Hey, you. What are you doing? Coming to distract me? Is that what you're doing? Alright. Okay. Down. Yeah, I know. I see. Oh, okay. Good girl. Get down. Get down. Good girl. So, the boss always wants attention. And she's usually pretty good at getting it.
I see you.
Except then she gets hair everywhere.
What? I see you.
So this will be the last piece we need to cut out for this particular project. Get this piece cut out. And then we're
What? What? Dog, sorry. Okay, jeez.
and so when doing this, it's okay to like make a few cuts. You don't have to like get all the way through the leather on the first cut. Better just to make a few swipes and be accurate. Alright, now I'm just going to put this in the leather away. And we'll finish up our lines here. And sometimes the rotary cutter is nice for some of these other cuts. Alright, there we go. Alright, so we have our two inside flaps. We have our card pocket. We have our outside.
Hey, I've already pet you.
And such.
Here.
Okay, and then we have our shell too. So we have that. The last thing that we're going to need is I need a chunk that's big enough for a pen, and so I'm just going to use this little template.
Jeez, dog.
And so then I'll be able to skyve this down, make it a little thinner, and be able to use it for our pen holder. Alright. I do want to Alright, so for this, I do need to put in a name, and so I just kind of want to measure out, get a good idea to see if I have to do 1 line, 2 lines. I also might do this, so alright, this will just let me kind of see where I need to put this here. Doesn't really matter which order, I just want to see if I can, what my spacing is going to look like overall. That's a little better. Alright, so I'm not going to quite work on that piece, but that's okay, because that's where my logo can go then, but we will put it up here, I'm thinking. Ooh, and that's like just going to fit. But it will fit perfectly. Okay, so that's what I needed to know. Just to make sure I get my lines all right and correct. And that we're inside of them. Actually, let's do this. There we go. Hey Raven, I'm doing good. How are you doing? Yeah, so busy working on journal cover tonight. And just working on getting I'm going to be stamping in some letters, so I'm just trying to get everything lined up here so that way it looks all really nice. And I'm just going to grab the countertop so I have something a little bit more solid to work with here. Yeah, so should be fun. Oh, my foreman is coming to say hi once again. Just being a little on the needy side tonight, right? Yeah, you are. You're being needy. Just want lots of attention, right? Alright. So let's arrange these as best we can. Alright, and then just to be on the safe side, let's make sure everything is right here. Okay.
Dad, I'm creating my own Roblox game.
Mm. Alright, there we go. I don't know if you can see it very well. Anyway, it showed up on here. Oh, yeah, there you go. So you can see fresh code, Sherwood Park. So that part is done. Now I gotta put everything back so we don't lose it. Alright, there we go. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to put my logo into this piece here. Sorry, I'll just be off camera for a moment here. Alright, so then we just have our stamp into there.
Okay, so we're gonna go with
Some tokenol, wherever you may be. There we are. So this just helps finish our edges and seal them a little bit. So that just gives me some lines to map out where I'm going to place my glue and such. So we're just going to rough up the leather a little bit underneath on the shiny side here, so that way glue helps stick a little bit better. As such. just going to hit this just a little bit of glue. Try and use some of the excess on this side.
Okay, so you do that. Oh. So clone and then then you can actually go for it. Okay, so let it stop.
I'll just give that a few moments to set up. While we're waiting for that, we're just going to hit this with a little bit of Tokonol too. Just to help seal these edges.
Okay, so I need to go.
So yeah, I'll get some Tokonol on here. Give this all a quick little burnish here just to help seal these edges. And now our glue should be set up enough that we can just pop this onto here. Yeah, so it looks even, or as even as we can. I mean, the thing about handmade goods is that they're not always 100% perfect, so but try and make it look as 100% perfect as possible. So we'll just give a little pressure to make sure that glue kind of holds it in place. And then we're going to mark out our stitch line. Alright, so now that we got our stitch line marked out, we're going to put some holes into this, some stitching holes, so that way we can get everything stitched in here. Oh, just hold on here. Hey guys, sorry about that. Yeah, sorry if you're following me on TikTok, for some reason every time I try to like pause it, I end my stream.
Okay, then. Also, I forgot to make this time.
Hey guys, sorry about that. If you were watching me earlier, I just tried to pause it and then unfortunately I just seem to have like just stopped the stream, so I apologize. Yeah. So where we're at right now is continuing to punch our holes into here and such. So actually, you know what, let's try something different here. Or maybe not. We'll just leave it as is for now. Okay, so let's get our holes punched. Thanks for all the likes, guys. Yeah, sorry, I ended up having to like stop for a minute and then come back. Alright, so if you're just joining me for the first time here, welcome to my channel. I make handmade leather goods. Today I'm working on a journal cover. There's a quick project here. I'm going to try and get as much of this done here as I can tonight. So yeah. Hey Cindy, how you doing? Right? I wish I could make the journal covers that fast. That would be fantastic. My productivity would be through the roof. Mind you, if I get a sewing machine, it definitely will speed things up. Because then I wouldn't have to punch all these holes by hand. So that would be nice. But till then, I'm doing alright. Like I say, just trying to get do this journal cover here and such. I had I had to go for my nerve conduction testing on Monday. So yesterday, let's just say it's not very fun to be electrocuted multiple times and have needles stuck into your muscles, into your large muscle groups, including my diaphragm. So that required a needle going through my intercostal rib space, so between my ribs on both sides, into my diaphragm. So yeah, not very fun at all. As well as like all the large muscle groups in my yeah, right? Sounds like a good time. Yeah, not so much. Not to mention, my legs have like really large, like my muscles in my legs are quite large, and so they had to really amp up the voltage to make sure they got a good reading. They said so. Yeah, that wasn't fun either. Alright, so just get these, get this pocket sewn on here. So you have to forgive me. I won't be able to see the screen on my phone too well at the moment. While I'm over here stitching. Get this stitched up. Normally I'd move the stitching pony out or attach it kind of where you guys can see. I already had it set up and figured I would just get, this is a pretty short amount of sewing anyway. So it shouldn't be, about almost a third done already. So if you're just joining me and checking out my streams, thank you. I appreciate it very much. If you like seeing handmade leather goods being created, then keep following me. Like, follow, subscribe. If you subscribe through TikTok, every month I will send out a 10% off coupon. And such, so that right there basically pays for your subscription. If you buy something, you definitely save the cost plus more. So yeah, it makes it worth it. Check out dragonscaleleather.ca if you're interested in some of my products that are pre-made. If you're looking for something made to order, just reach out to me. You can either reach out to me through through TikTok or any of the other platforms. So. And you can watch your project getting made real time. I'll stream it. Sorry, guys. Hey Ahmed, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Sorry, Sarah. Not all my muscles, but all my like large muscle groups. So like biceps, quads. Yeah. Because they were also like testing my phrenic nerve, I ended up getting shocked in the neck a few times. Can't say that was very pleasant. Sorry, one of my stitches is a little off, so I'm just going to fix it before I get too much further here. I don't like the way it looks. What do I got going on here? Let's see what we got. I got a stabbed thread here. That's at least what it looks like. Can't quite tell which thread's going through which thread. There we go. Alright, now we can start that over. Sorry guys. It was either that or I had to like restart the whole thing, and so I didn't want to do that. Looks a little better.
There we go.
Last couple stitches, and then throw in a couple back stitches just to lock everything in place. There we go. Oh, thanks, Cindy. Appreciate the gifts. As per usual, all my gifts right now are going to Rue because she's an awesome dog, and why not, right? Yeah. Let's set these stitches now. There you go. So yeah. So the stamp at the top is Fresh Coat. It's a company, painting company that my neighbor actually started, and so this is going to him, which is fun. Rue always appreciates the gifts. She's a very appreciative dog. Alright, so I'm just going to mark out where my magnetic snaps are going to go. And actually on this piece, let's burnish our inside edge. Do this now, and then this piece will be ready to be sewn on when we get to it. I have to admit though, this leather smells like really good. I like the smell of this particular one.
I'm building the game. I got the bosses. I got the spawn points, and then I have the walls, and then the ground.
That's good. Go ahead. Need one of these. We'll line up our marker, our spots. For magnetic snaps. It's mostly the smell of the tanning. So it's a mixture of the hide and the tanning. So, hey Baker Girl, how you doing? Thanks for the 1,800 likes, guys. I appreciate it.
I did not mean that. I do not want that guy moving.
So yeah, but yeah, so it I don't know. It's kind of all of it. Pretty much the hide and the tanning chemicals, which give it its smell. So yeah, probably not the healthiest, but hey, the smell of leather is just awesome. And I'm good, Baker Girl. How are you doing? So yeah, how's Lethbridge today? Was it nice? Because it was pretty nice up here today. A little cool, but really nice. That's fair, Sarah. Alright, so.
I can't.
So we got here 9:18. So I'll probably just go for a few more minutes here. Usually don't like to go after 9 because hammering gets a little noisy, so I'll probably just we'll get a few more of these pieces ready to go, and then we'll just kind of leave it at that for today, and then pick up again tomorrow and do some more. And yeah, we'll get these done. Yeah, I like our summer though. I don't want to go straight to fall. But yeah, spring and fall are like my two favorite seasons. I don't like the hot of summer, but I like the niceness of summer, I guess. And our winters up here, especially around Edmonton, are like so long that it's nice to have, the less of them that we can have, the better. Is kind of where I'm going with that. So I like the long days of summer though. That's one thing I do like about being up here. So I remember going to California some years ago, and of course it's like, it starts getting dark. They get like 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark. And it was like during the fall, so but yeah, it seemed weird having like even time for dark and light, where up here, it's during the summer we get like 14 hours of light, and winter we get 14 hours of dark. So yeah. Alright, so we got that. Let's
go.
I'll use the silver snaps here. Sorry, itchy nose. Let's go with the big ones on the flap.
Okay, now click management schedule. Start creating.
Make sure we got all the way through on this side.
Start creating.
There we go. Yeah, the heat can be a little much during the summers, especially with the long days. But the long days are nice. Those long evenings, especially for like having fires and such. Alright. That. Let's map out our spots on here. We had
What are you doing?
I'm working on a project. There we go. Lines up good. Alright, there we go. Oh, Xander? Yeah. Well, he's had glasses for a while, but he's just, yeah, he got a new pair, so. And he's busy. He was busy building a new Roblox world, I guess, or Roblox game. So. Yeah, he likes that pair, so which is good. So he tends to wear them a little bit more, like he should, especially when he's at a computer or gaming. I should probably wear my glasses more. Most people don't even know I own a pair. I'm supposed to use them more when I'm at or when I'm using the computer, and I'm horrible for using them. Yeah, actually, here I'll show you guys. They're a little dirty though. Anyway. Yeah. Yes, you have them. I have this like small stigmatism, so I don't necessarily need them for the most part, but it's better if I wear them when I'm at the computer. I'm just not good at I'm just not good at wearing them in general. So, like father like son, yeah, he is a little bit of my mini-me, to say the least. Hey Amanda, how you doing? Oh, nice. Yeah, my eyes are pretty good overall, so I don't really need a whole lot of work on them. Good. Perfect. That's what I like to see. So this one will go here. Right. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not blind without my glasses. Like, because I would probably just end up being blind all the time because I'm so bad at wearing them. Seeing. Okay. That's the other part is because it's a small stigmatism when I wear them, things close and looking down are like off. So it was totally looking like it was off, and now I take off my glasses and everything lines up. Alright guys, well it is 9:30, so I am going to log off here, but yeah, we'll chat some more later, and I'll be on tomorrow. So I will talk to you guys later. Have a good night.
No, wait. Hello. Bye.
Oh, and there's Tiffany. She just wanted to say hi.
It's kind of a like time.
Alright guys,
Bye.
have a good night.
Good night. Whoa.
Rebel Capitals, hope you're well. So the new CPI data is out, and holy cow, the market was not expecting this. Stocks get crushed, and the bond market, the yields are exploding higher. So let's dive into this report, see what's different from the expectations, and let's head over to the CNBC homepage and see what all of these, what the markets are actually doing and how much they're responding to this CPI report that caught people off guard. Let's go right over to CNBC. Here is the inflation breakdown for January 2024. This report just came out this morning, all in one chart. Key talking points: consumer price index rose by 3.1% in January, a smaller annual increase than December, but this exceeded expectations. Workers' buying power. Now, this is something that I want to focus on throughout this entire video, because this is complete BS. And it's really shocking to me that the mainstream media pushes this nonsense and people actually buy into it. Now, I know you don't buy into it because you're a lot smarter than that. You can use common sense, the Rebel Capitalist community. But I can't believe that they can get away with this narrative, really. Next key talking point: however, there were a few potentially worrying signs under the surface. Okay. So they say that the headline CPI number year over year is now 3.1%, and that's down from 3.4%. What was really surprising to the market is the month over month data was higher than expected. More on that in just a moment. Here they break down the chart. Now, this is a head scratcher, to say the least. So all items, like we said earlier, 3.1% increase year over year. So what all the experts on FinTwit and the mainstream media, Bloomberg, CNBC, they'll all come out and just cling to that 3.1% as though it's just written in stone. We don't even need to research anything more. The government told us that it's 3.1%. So damn it, it's 3.1%. And anybody that says anything different is a Alex Jones, tinfoil hatter, conspiracy theorist. But then they give us the chart, or according to CNBC, I want to put words in their mouth, the inflation breakdown for January 2024 in one chart. That's according to them. Okay, so let's look at this one chart. And these are year-over-year numbers. So food, 2.6%. Food at home, 1.2%. Not too bad. But then you look at the breakdown of some of the food items, and you see juice up 29%. Beef, steaks, just beef, I guess, up 10.7%. Baby formula up 8.7%. Sugar up 7.2%. Fats, oils up 5.1%. Bread 5.1%. Frozen vegetables 5%. Carbonated drinks 4.8%. Now, I'm no math genius. As most of you know, I almost flunked out of high school. I don't even know what math level I got up to. It wasn't high. I can tell you that right now. But just looking at these numbers, 29%, 10, 8, 7, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, I don't know how you get to 2.6. Now, I understand they're leaving out some items from the basket. But again, this is CNBC. So you would think that if inflation or food inflation, or price increase year over year was actually 2.6%, that there would be some numbers that would be, oh, I don't know, around 2.6%, or maybe under 2.6%, that would offset things going up by 30%, like juice. Very, very interesting. But let's keep going. So, food away from home, 5.1. That would include vending machines and limited service meals and snacks. But that's 10.6 and 5.8. Far cry from 5.1. Now, you mean to tell me that restaurants, which I assume would include the rest of this, were at 3%? A lot lower than 5.1 that would give you that specific number? Again, it seems a bit weird. It's a head scratcher. So then we got electricity up 3.8%. So we've got all items less food and energy. So here you would assume that we would have a lot of numbers under the 3.1%. Because let's remember that the biggest component of the CPI, because it's weight adjusted, is housing. More on that in just a moment. So here we've got, let's look to see if we can find how many of these numbers are under 3.1. 20.6? No. That's definitely higher. 18.2, 13.5, 11.2, 9.6, 9.2, 9.1. We go down to the lowest number, which is haircuts, and they're saying it's 4.2.
Only at Fresh Slice, you can get unlimited toppings at one price. Any medium pizza is just $12. You can pick your favorite pizza toppings made right before your eyes for one low price, $12. In-store deal. Fresh Slice, fresh lives here.
So not one number, not one item in the basket, at least the basket they have shown us via this chart, is even remotely close to 3.1%. And most of them are way over 3.1%. So all your friend and family member Freds right about now are saying, George. Okay, I get it. But remember that housing is the biggest component. It's like 33% of the average. So if housing is at, let's say, 1% or flat, then that would potentially explain why every single other price can be above 5, could be above 10, for heaven's sakes, almost. And yet you still have this 3.1% overall number that the mainstream media just clings on to. It's like that ring in Lord of the Rings. My little precious, my precious. That's how they really come to this narrative that they just try to jam down your throats. This narrative that the economy is doing great. And the fact that you don't think it's doing well means that you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, yeah, CNBC, but I can't afford to put food on the table. That doesn't matter. Shut up. Just be quiet. You just don't understand how good the economy actually is. You know, that's this narrative that I keep saying that they want to push, that it's so blatantly obvious. But even when they show us the numbers, it doesn't even make sense. So let's go down to what your friend and family member Fred is likely saying right now about housing costs. Additionally, shelter inflation up 6%. 6%. So, like everything else they showed us, it's not just over 3.1, but way over 3.1. So, how on earth are you coming to this conclusion? Now, I want to be very clear, and most of you know this from watching my videos, but I don't get everything right. But one thing I think I absolutely nailed was the inflation and then disinflation that we have had since 2020. But I never said that the CPI numbers were correct as far as the actual headline CPI. I said that they're always understated. It's just the trend, I think, is likely correct. So, as an example, when they said the CPI was at 9.1 back, I think that was July of 2022, I was saying it's probably around 15, probably a lot higher than that. But the fact that it goes down to 3.1, I'm not saying I believe it's at 3.1, but I'm saying I believe that it came down from wherever it was in July of 2022. And when I was making those predictions for disinflation, that's the context in which I was laying out my base case, right? I was not saying that in the actual numbers are legit. I was always saying that they're understated, but that the inflation rate, wherever it was likely going to come down from that point in whatever it was, July or June of 2022. So now getting back to this here, some portions of the article that I've got highlighted. Ultimately, it's just likely a brief detour from broader disinflation. This is according to Mark Zandi, who is an analyst for Moody's, or an economist, excuse me, for Moody's Analytics. Now, this is something that I don't agree with. I don't think that we're on this trend of disinflation. So just to rewind here, back in 2020, I was pounding the table for inflation, especially into 2021. And then when we got to the middle or Q3 maybe of 2022, I was then pounding the table for disinflation. But then once we got the CPI down to, it was around 3.5, something like that. And again, I understand that number's understated, but just using that as a proxy for whatever the level of inflation is kind of flattening out, I said, okay, this makes a lot of sense. I don't think we're going to get any more disinflation. I don't think we're going to get extreme inflation until we have some sort of massive catalyst. So what would those catalysts be? Well, on the upside, we'd have to have just government spending take off to a point where the inflationary pressure from government spending overwhelmed the deflationary pressure of what the economy naturally wants to do, to the point where inflation would go up. So you can't just sit there and say, well, the government's running $3-4 trillion deficits. And although that is absolutely an inflationary pressure, that doesn't necessarily mean that prices go up, because that could be just offsetting the deflation that we have naturally in the economy due to things like, the banking crisis that we're in maybe inning 3 or 4 of right now. So that would be an example of what the government would have to do. World War III, I hate to even mention that, but that's unfortunately something that we need to discuss. This would increase prices. Why? Because we're cutting off global supply chains. It's very similar to what the central planners did back during the Cerveza sickness. So you've got two components there. You've got the supply side, the demand side, right? We've either got to see demand side skyrocket a lot higher that would offset the deflationary pressures, or we need to see the supply side come back down. So that's kind of the catalyst that we might see on the upside. On the downside, what would that be? Recession, economic depression, something like that, to where the central planners can't offset the deflationary pressures and they overwhelm the inflationary pressures that are created by the government spending.
Use Kayak's filters to search only the flights you actually want to take. Download the Kayak app now.
Notice I didn't talk about the Fed. All right, getting back to the report. And here is where they completely derail. Inflation has fallen significantly since pandemic era peak. Okay, I'll give them that. It was June of 2022. Around that time, average consumer paycheck wasn't keeping up with fast rising prices. The so-called real earnings. So incomes, when you take into consideration consumer price inflation, or real incomes, whatever you want to say. So that was negative for more than 2 years. But I would argue that it was a lot more negative than the numbers revealed, because that 9.1 number was understated. So now we look at what they're saying, and the narrative they're trying to push is, oh my gosh, look at how strong the consumer is. Look at how great the economy is. Oh my gosh, the consumer's got nothing to complain about. And if they do, it's just because they've been watching right-wing media too much. And they really have it good, but they've just been brainwashed to think that everything is bad. And they are coming to that conclusion based on this 3.1% number compared to the increase in overall incomes. So let's just assume for a moment that the overall income number is correct. Well, there's no way that we can assume this 3.1 number is correct, not even on their own data. It doesn't even make sense. And I understand they're excluding some stuff here, but not one thing that they gave us other than food at home, and food is under the 3.1. And when they break down each of those items, every single component is in fact, most of them are over 5%. They're not even close to 3.1% or 1.2 or 2.6. And then you add in housing, like we did before, that's 6%. So I believe that even using their own metrics, if you were intellectually honest about this and you weren't trying to engineer the numbers to, I don't know, make the administration look a lot better than it is, or try to win an election in 2024, when you think basically you need to, anything justifies not allowing Donald Trump to get into the office. And this comes from someone that doesn't like Trump. I think both of them are terrible. You see, so there's a lot of incentive here to cook the books, to say the least. And let's just assume for a moment that the real number is based on this right here, not based on George Gammon just, coming up with some tinfoil hat theory, but based on CNBC. We could say that the real numbers, and I'm talking about year-over-year CPI or consumer price inflation, is maybe, let's just say it's 7%. Okay, well, now all of a sudden, we've got negative real wages. And now all of a sudden, all the people, all the average Joes and Janes in the real economy that are complaining, saying, hey, I can't make ends meet, now all of a sudden that makes sense. That, to me, that's my base case. Absolutely 100%. So now we get down to, oh, and by the way, here's a chart showing that month over month, 0.3, which was slightly higher than expected. I think expected was 0.2. And that's why the stock market is just tanking and bond yields are skyrocketing. Now they go into why they think that we had consumer price inflation and therefore why they think it's gone. And basically they're talking about the supply side of the equation from the pandemic. But we know that this really wasn't a result of the pandemic.
You're watching the legal breakdown. So Glenn, we've got some quick movement here by the Supreme Court. Yesterday, Trump requested a stay from the Supreme Court on sending the immunity issue back to the trial court. And already today, SCOTUS is taking action. So what happened here?
Yeah, Brian, the Supreme Court just lit a very short fuse, and I think it's ultimately a good sign. So here's what happened. Yesterday, Donald Trump, at the last minute, filed a request to stay or stop his trial from moving forward in the trial court. This, of course, is the federal prosecution in Washington, D.C., being presided over by Judge Chutkan for Donald Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election. The lower court panel unanimously, 3 judges, said, yeah, Donald Trump doesn't have absolute immunity against prosecution. No president does. And they gave Donald Trump just 1 week to go to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court to put a pause or a hold on his trial. And if he didn't do it within a week, then his case was going to begin moving toward trial again. So at the last minute, he filed the request for the stay or the pause. And then immediately, I mean, within 12 hours or so, the Supreme Court said, okay, prosecutor, special counsel Jack Smith, we want your reply to Donald Trump's request for a stay within 1 week. So we're going to see something in the coming days where Jack Smith inevitably files a reply saying, no need for a stay. Let's get this case back on the trial track.
Now, is it unusual from your vantage that the Supreme Court is moving so quickly? And as a follow-up to that, does it portend a quick resolution on their part on this issue of immunity?
Yeah, it is unusual. Generally, it's a pretty staid affair when things are filed in the Supreme Court. There are normal deadlines for replies to be filed. I think the Supreme Court appreciates the urgency of the moment. I would go so far as to say the Supreme Court is stepping up the pace a bit by asking Jack Smith for a reply within a week. I do think the fact that they want this answer from Jack Smith so quickly is an indication that they're going to move quickly toward a decision. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that decision is likely that this case does not need to be paused or stayed or stopped while there is further litigation, if any, on this presidential immunity issue. So keep our fingers crossed because, our ultimate goal is accountability and justice. We'll keep our fingers crossed that the Supreme Court pretty promptly denies the stay, puts it back in Judge Chutkan's hands, and the first thing Judge Chutkan will do, I predict, is call the parties in and say, okay, we need to pick a new trial date, and that one is going to be set in stone.
Now, you'd mentioned that this was moving quickly as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, and they gave Jack Smith just a week. Can Jack Smith respond even quicker than the deadline of next week to get this thing going even faster? Like, why not respond today so that we can move on to the next step?
Yeah, he can and he might. I even suspect he will. But here's the thing. So Donald Trump and his lawyers filed a 110-page brief. Now, mind you, they are just retreading the same failed arguments. When I say failed, they have failed repeatedly. They failed in the trial court to convince Judge Chutkan. They failed in the appellate court to even get one of the 3 judges to buy into their nonsense about absolute presidential immunity. So they really padded this Supreme Court request for a stay. They probably could have done it in a half a dozen pages. They put 110 pages before the court, probably hoping that it might bog things down and maybe slow Jack Smith down a little bit in his reply. But as you say, Brian, the Supreme Court gave Jack Smith a week, but, I am not so sure Jack Smith is going to take a week. He will need to go through it. He will need to have the attorneys who are the appeals expert on his prosecution team look at it, draft a reply, make sure, all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, all the footnotes and citations are accurate, but we could see a reply within 2, 3, 4 days.
Okay. Well, to that point, what are next steps here? Like, how many more procedural motions do we have to contend with before we actually get a decision on the meat of this issue?
Yeah, the next step might be the whole ball game. And here's why I say that. Once Jack Smith files his reply, which will undoubtedly be, we don't think you need to stay this case. We don't think you need to take review of the case at all. But that's not what is at issue right now. The only thing at issue in this new motion and reply is whether the Supreme Court should stop the case dead in its tracks or put it back on the trial track. Jack Smith undoubtedly will say, put it back on the trial track. If the Supreme Court agrees to put it back on the trial track, that is almost the whole ball game. Why do I say that? Because the law as it applies to immunity says nobody should have to do anything to defend themselves at trial, or even prepare to defend themselves at trial if they in fact have immunity. Because if they have immunity, they shouldn't be prosecuted in the first place. So reading between the lines, if the Supreme Court says, we are not issuing a stay, we're going to let this thing get back in Judge Chutkan's hands, she can set a trial date, and the case can move in the direction of trial, that will be some really important foreshadowing that the Supreme Court has all but decided, no, we are not going to entertain this absolute immunity nonsense. And if we do entertain it, we're only going to entertain it so we can write an authoritative legal opinion shooting it down precisely the way Judge Chutkan did and the way the three-judge panel did unanimously. Sometimes the Supreme Court likes to feel like, the big dogs on the legal block. So they may say, you know what, we agree with all of those other judges who have already rejected Trump's claim of absolute immunity. But, for posterity and history, we want to be the ones who author the authoritative Supreme Court opinion saying so.
Glenn, just for posterity here, can you walk us through what we can expect in terms of the timeline? I know the main question that everyone's wondering right now is, could this thing still happen? Assuming that the Supreme Court rules correctly and says that Donald Trump doesn't have full immunity to do whatever he wants as president, assuming they rule that way, if we would still be on track based on where we are right now for a trial before the election?
We would be. And here's why I say that. Assuming the Supreme Court gets this right, and I think they will get it right, for goodness sakes. The Constitution says inferentially a president can be prosecuted. Not only that, a president can be prosecuted even if he's impeached for the same conduct and the same crime. There is no open question of law or of constitutional interpretation. So I am fairly confident the Supreme Court will get it right. And assuming the Supreme Court is prepared to say a president does not have immunity, he can be prosecuted for crimes committed while in office, I think they're going to say that much sooner rather than later. Because if that is their legal conclusion, I think they understand the urgency of the moment, the need to get this back on Judge Chutkan's calendar so she can set a trial date. If that happens in the coming weeks or even in the next month or two, I think we're going to see potentially a summer trial. And that will resolve the case well in advance of the November election.
Do you think it's possible that that based on where we are right now, that this could take the trial date of May 20th, which was supposed to be, or it's still pending to be the classified documents case, but I think there is an expectation that that case would be pushed back?
I think there is an outside possibility that they could substitute the DC prosecution for the Florida documents prosecution. As you say, Judge Cannon down in Florida set a May 20 trial date, and she has not yet canceled or postponed, or what we call vacated, that trial date. So I think that's a possibility. And it really boils down to how quickly can the Supreme Court put this back in Judge Chutkan's hands? Because Judge Chutkan had said, listen, when and if I get this case back, I will still give you some lead time, probably a couple of months, before we begin jury selection and we go to trial. So I think right now there's a possibility that May 20 could end up being the new DC trial date, or it could be, perhaps in June or maybe even July.
When this trial had initially fallen off, the DC prosecution, when this had initially fallen off trial track, we had about 90 days between that day and when the trial was supposed to take place. So if we had the same amount of days, that would put us roughly at around February 20th, February, March, April, May. So do you anticipate that that will need to be almost exactly the same, or is there a little bit of shortening that could happen if we're to see that May 20th trial date happen?
I would say a little bit of shortening could happen, but it's not likely to happen. Once a judge goes on record as saying, listen, whenever I get jurisdiction back, whenever they hand the case back to me, I'm going to give you about the same amount of lead time as you had before this delay, this pause, this hold was put in place. I think the judge will be loath to kind of back off that position and say, well, you know what? I'm going to cut it down to 60 days because I think the attorneys could rightfully complain that, look, Judge, all along, we had this 90 days in the back of our minds because of what you told us. So I don't see Judge Chutkan really truncating or cutting down the time that she said she was prepared to give them.
All right. Well, to that point, hopefully Jack Smith and his team move quickly, at least in responding to this this request by the Supreme Court. So, takeaway here, Glenn. Good news that the Supreme Court is already moving on this.
I'm going to say it's not bad news. I know that sounds like a cop-out. I would put it in the good news category, but probably only by about 51%. It's an indication that, one, the Supreme Court appreciates the urgency of the moment, and two, it could have been worse news because they want to reply quickly. That, to me, suggests that they're thinking more about a trial track than they're thinking about just getting rid of this case entirely, because they are going to create out of whole cloth absolute presidential immunity from prosecution. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they know they're not going to do that. That's why I'm going to put this in the good news category.
All right, well, this is a game of inches, and we'll take every inch we can get. So with that said, we'll obviously stay on top of this as soon as we have any updates. For those watching, if you want to follow along, please make sure to subscribe. The links to both of our channels are right here on this screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.
Speaker Johnson said he was slamming this package for excluding the border security provisions. The Senate bill, he said, is silent on the most pressing issue facing our country, talking about the border. He says he's not going to bring it to the floor if it passes the Senate, which it did, but they could find a way to go around the Speaker.
Right. And he says the reason that the House is not going to bring it up is because it needs border security stuff, which ironically was in the Senate bill last week. But of course, that was kicked to the curb because a bunch of Republicans bailed on it because Donald Trump didn't like it. According to Punchbowl this morning, House leadership believes that they cannot bring this particular Senate bill to the House floor if Johnson wants to remain Speaker. In other words, if they bring it up in the House, he will be gone.
The hypocrisy by Republicans is now so obvious that even Fox's Steve Doocy is calling them out on air. So that we're clear, Mike Johnson's now saying that the House couldn't possibly take up the foreign aid package that just cleared the Senate because it doesn't include border security. The irony being that the Senate did negotiate a bill combining foreign aid with border security, only for Mike Johnson himself to kill it because dear leader Donald Trump preferred the issue over the solution. It's almost like, and I hope you're sitting down for this, Mike Johnson and the Republicans don't actually want to find solutions to any of the problems they complain about on a daily basis. Here's what that hypocrisy looks like when it's put on full display.
We are committed to that. The battle is for the border. We do that first as a top priority, and we'll take care of these other obligations.
We did read through it, Laura, and it did not take long to realize that this is dead on arrival. There's no way we could bring this through the House.
And if you're wondering where that came from, here you go.
The only long-term solution to the crisis and the only way to ensure the endurance of our nation as a sovereign country is for Congress to overcome open borders obstruction.
This is not possible to believe that a thing like this could happen. You already have, you don't need a bill. I had the safest border in the history of our country. We had no bill.
And as far as Trump and his influence on the party is concerned, you've heard the saying, the fish rots from the head. All the while, as Republicans are politicking to give their God King whatever edge he can get in the election, the implications of delaying or outright failing to allocate foreign aid are severe. Ukraine, a democracy, is right now contending with an onslaught by the Russians, led by an authoritarian warmonger. And for those of you thinking, why spend money on Ukraine when we've got problems right here at home? If you think supplemental aid packages are costly, just imagine what it'll cost, both financially and the human toll, if Russia succeeds in Ukraine and goes after Poland or some other NATO country next, which would trigger Article 5 and drag us into a war with a nuclear power. I know that Republicans have the memory of a goldfish, but the last war that we got involved in cost us $8 trillion. And admittedly, math isn't my strong suit, but I feel like $60 million to prevent a Russian takeover might be less than the $8 trillion it cost us last time we went to war. And by the way, this is an issue that I discussed with one of the preeminent authorities on this issue, Senator Chris Murphy.
I agree with you that we've got to do a better job of explaining to people what the consequences are of Russia winning the war in Ukraine. We've kind of gotten used to this post-World War II world, in which big countries don't expand their boundaries by invading smaller countries. But anybody who remembers their high school history knows that this is how the world worked all the time. And the United States got dragged into 2 world wars in order to defend our friends from foreign invasions. That will start again. That era will recommence because it's not just Russia that wants to keep moving. China wants to expand their boundaries as well. So if you don't stand up for a little country like Ukraine, or it's not that little, but for a friend like Ukraine right now, you will be sooner than later at war with another big power, and it will be thousands of American young men and women who are dying. This is just a smart, relatively small investment in global security and ultimately in American security.
And by the way, even if the moral incentive isn't strong enough here, there's also a really strong economic incentive, because people may think it's expensive to help Ukraine now, but imagine how expensive it would be if the world is engrossed in another war. Not just in terms of how much we would have to spend just on the war effort, but just what would happen to the global economy if another war broke out.
Well, and already, you've seen the impact of this war. Part of the story of inflation is the story of, a big part of the world's food supply chain being interrupted in Ukraine and in Russia. So, listen, I'm not saying it's certain that if Putin wins the war in Ukraine, that he will move on to a NATO country. But I think it is certainly inside the Overton window. It is possible. And man, we do not want to be in our lifetime's first ever direct confrontation between 2 nuclear powers.
Murphy also took to Twitter amid the news that Johnson would not allow the foreign aid bill to the floor for a vote, writing, "The speaker said he wouldn't pass Ukraine funding without a border deal, and we got a deal, and then he killed the deal because he said we didn't need a deal, and now he says he won't pass our Ukraine funding because it didn't include a border deal." Honestly, WTF. Here's the facts. Republicans, including Mike Johnson, will do whatever Donald Trump tells them. If he wanted them to strip down, tar and feather themselves, and walk on their hands onto the floor of the House or the Senate, they would do it. That part is already beyond clear. And Trump will do whatever he feels will help him electorally for the upcoming election. And because he knows how potent of an issue the border is and always has been, after all, we're talking about a party that has been groomed by literal decades of fear-mongering about migrant caravans, he doesn't want to give that up, especially considering he doesn't give a shit about what happens at the border or anywhere. He just wants to be president. If a comet was headed straight for the center of this country, he would root for the comet if it meant that Joe Biden's approval rating would also take a hit. Trump himself admitted that he wants to see the economy crash because it would ultimately redound to his benefit.
Retirement's not an ending. It can be whatever you choose to make it.
The CHIP Reverse Mortgage by Home Equity Bank.
When there's a crash, I hope it's going to be during this next 12 months, because I don't want to be Herbert Hoover. The one president, I just don't want to be Herbert Hoover.
So I'm not sure how many more clips I can show of Donald Trump's own words proving that he wants to create new problems and entrench existing ones because they will help him in the election. This isn't about us. It has never been about us. This is about him and his money and his fame and his power. And he will do anything, and even broadcast that he will do anything, to make sure to protect all of those things. The destruction of our lives and our economy and our democracy are all prices that he's willing to pay so that he can consolidate power for himself. So do I have faith that Trump's little supplicants in the Republican Party will defy him and move the foreign aid bill? Not really. But it's our job to keep the pressure on regardless, and let them know that if they want to contract their dignity to a guy who is openly bragging about his willingness to destroy the country for his electoral benefit, then they're not going to get a free pass. To that point, I'll end with these words by the only party's nominee running for president who is not willing to destroy the post-war alliance all for a cheap political win.
By a margin of 70 to 29. To move forward with the bipartisan national security bill. Now it moves to the House. And I urge Speaker Johnson to bring it to the floor immediately. Immediately. There's no question that if the Senate bill was put on the floor in the House of Representatives, it would pass. It would pass. And the Speaker knows that. So I call on the Speaker to let the full House speak its mind and not allow a minority of most extreme voices in the House to block this bill even from being voted on. Even from being voted on. This is a critical act for the House to move. It needs to move. The bill provides urgent funding for Ukraine so it can keep defending itself against Putin's vicious, vicious onslaught.
Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.
There's nothing more powerful than you, making your thing happen, really going for it, doing business on your terms, giving it your all, making a difference, and loving what you do. Every single day, feeling fearless, fulfilled, free. When there's nothing holding you back, what would your thing be?
I'm joined now by Rachel Maddow, host of The Rachel Maddow Show, and Lawrence O'Donnell, host of The Last Word. All right, let me get first sort of top-line reactions from you, Rachel, to the court's decision today.
Well, first of all, just kudos on fakakta nonsense at the end of the A block was just, I aspire to end up there at the end of a monologue, an explanatory one like this. I think, Chris, that the thing that was interesting to me about this ruling was that from the very beginning, you're right that there is complicated jurisdictional stuff. There's stuff that lawyers will get that other people won't get in here. But from the very beginning, it was very blunt on stuff that there's been an effort to be fuzzy about by people in the political arena. It says at the very outset of the ruling, there was not a peaceful transition of power. The reason the Congress was attacked, that resulted from Trump's rally, from which thousands of people then marched to the Capitol and attacked Congress. It's very blunt about those things. It calls it an unprecedented assault on our system of government. Just very blunt about these things that there have been efforts to obfuscate, and I thought that was helpful. But I also just thought it was helpful, I think, for us as a country in talking about this, that they did outright mock the claims that you have to be impeached and convicted in the Senate before you could be put on trial for committing murder or committing any of these other crimes. And I think that it's good that they basically rebutted what I think of as the common sense claim here, which is that other presidents like Richard Nixon, like even Bill Clinton, like other presidents in their real lives have shown, even
You know by now that here at the Midas Touch Network, when we start looking into something, we are relentless about it. I'm sure you've watched our series right now on Donald Trump's connections with Jeffrey Epstein in the past, Donald Trump's connections with his despicable and disgusting behavior at beauty pageants, how Donald Trump met Melania. If you haven't seen that series, go back and watch it. The new series that I want to start to begin our investigation on, and this will be the first of a series here, is Donald Trump's relationship with Russia, Donald Trump's relationship with the Soviet Union. And you may say, hey, Ben, this has been covered before, hasn't it? There is this memory fog or collective amnesia. People want to ignore the facts and the data. We will not let them, and we're going to find source documents that have not really been discussed many places other than what you're going to see here at the Midas Touch Network. So, for example, on this video, I'm going to show you this full-page ad that Donald Trump took out, in the New York Times, that Donald Trump took out in the Boston Herald, and he took out in other major papers back in September of 1987, which was one of his first public attacks on NATO. You can see it right there. We'll go through this open letter that Donald Trump sent, one of the first forays into attacking NATO. I'm going to go and discuss some articles that mention this trip that Donald Trump took before this open letter was published, where he spent $100,000 to publish this open letter, where Donald Trump took a trip to the then Soviet Union in the summer of 1987 after being invited by Intourist, which was a touring agency within the Soviet Union, but it was really an arm of the Soviet Union and the Kremlin for them to try to recruit or bring in influential Americans and to then try to have influence operations over them. And then I want to connect that to what we're seeing in the present right now as Donald Trump gives speeches attacking NATO, saying that he would encourage Russia to do whatever they want with our allies in NATO if Trump says that this big NATO country doesn't pay his bills. I mean, Donald Trump, someone who hasn't paid his bills for his entire life, and this idea of a big NATO country not paying its bills. NATO stepped up when the United States was attacked on 9/11. The alliance of NATO has preserved a position of importance and peace and stability for the United States of America in a historically rarefied way, and Donald Trump wants to attack that alliance and hoist up Vladimir Putin, hoist up Russia as being a leader in a Trump-viewed kind of world order. So let's just take a look at the origins on this video, and we'll take our investigative series slowly like we did before on our investigative pieces of Trump and Epstein and Trump and Melania and Trump and the beauty pageants. Let's start with some of the basics right here. This is a Newsweek article from July of 1987. Trump lands in Red Square. The Soviets want him to build 2 luxury hotels, and it says real estate mogul Donald Trump stepped onto the circular balcony in his sumptuous corner suite at Moscow's National Hotel and criticized the door. This I can't understand, he said, pointing to layer upon layer of crusted brown paint. But this, he said, making a sweeping gesture at the unsurpassed view of the Kremlin, is fabulous. By the way, doesn't this show you how the media has been writing about Donald Trump in these very just bizarre propaganda, terms like some conquering hero? The guy's just walking into a hotel. Like, who describes things like this? It goes on to talk about here how Soviet officials visited Trump in New York before this and then invited him on the all-expenses-paid trip to Moscow. Trump saw a half-dozen sites in Moscow alone. The deal is far from done. Inveterate bargain hunter Trump might have met his match in the Soviets, who retain 51% of all joint ventures. Quote, I like to have all control, to put it mildly, says Donald Trump. I mean, again, it kind of reads like a bit of a propaganda piece. Let's delve into this other article, though, that's written in a more journalistic form, though. And this is how it was described by the Washington Post in a kind of in a piece in